Good. Hello,
We're on.
Nick.
What's up, buddy?
Nick and Nico, and that will be interesting chat, fire chat, and we have a nice fire
Exactly.
at the background.
Right.
That's keeping even more fire on our chat. So Nick Gallo, it's great to talk to you again, and looking forward to learn more about your growth, your personal perspective, and the big five for your fast forward. Thank you for joining me, and will be pleasure to share this with all our fast forward listeners. So we represent unicorn leaders, groundbreaking ideas, top thinkers like you, and some of the best best disruptions that we get in touch with. So we're going to go through the big five questions, discussing about black swan, talking about sharks in the blue ocean, talking about markets. We're going to move to the unicorns and fast forward of the companies, moving to the fast forward products with the set Godding, how to differentiate on your products, and on the last one, the oldest theory, butterfly wings effect by Jacques Adama, talking about personal fast forward. So let's go one by one. So talking about the global, how do you see things happening now, influencing which trends maybe outside of your industry do you see moving fast forwards you and your company?
Yeah, I love the question. So glad to be here. Great to reconnect with you, man. I think the biggest change that's going on in not just our industry, but all industries is this generational shift. So what's going on right now is there are about half of our workforce right now are Gen Z and millennials. And over the next 5 to 10 years, depending on where you draw the lines between generations, that population is going to swell to, about approximately 75% of our workforce. And there's a massive, massive opportunity that organizations can take advantage of by understanding these new groups that are coming into the workforce. Right now they're typically sort of mid to lower level within the organizations. Their ascent to higher levels in the organization is just going to perpetuate and continue. And as that rise occurs, we're going to see significant changes in the footprints of our organizations, the impact of our organizations, the scope of the purpose of the organization, moving away from the sort of archaic dollar myopia to a more kind of stakeholder approach that's looking at the business's impact. Obviously not, obviously beyond the shareholders, but to the broader community, to the employees, to the broader world. So if you think about these generational differences and why there's so much sort of tension in our organizations, it's because these two constituent groups, just to kind of draw a line between them, we'll call kind of Gen Z and millennials on one side of it, and we'll call, baby boomers and Gen Xers on the other side of it. These new generations just have a different prioritization of values. The folks in this generation remember 9/11. They remember the financial crisis. They saw housing, which our grandparents told us that was only going to go up, and hey, this is a piggy bank, put some more money in it. We saw housing crash and saw people's retirements get wiped out, their 401ks get wiped out, and them have to work for an extra 15 years as a result of these sort of tenets that were the underpinnings of the quote unquote American dream. And there are corollaries to that, I think, across the world. So any hierarchy only has one seat for that top thing. So if the old thing was, getting money and having a comfortable life and buying a house and retiring at 55 or whatever that is, if that's no longer possible, or these generations don't view that as possible, something else is going to fill that slot. And so, the caricature of this generation is somebody who's 30 years old, has $150,000 of college debt, can't find a job, is still living at home. Again, COVID notwithstanding, COVID just kind of exacerbated a lot of these things. The thing that's filling that top spot for this generation, again, as a broad brushstroke, is something more purposeful, having an organization whose purpose actually authentically resonates with my own purpose and making a difference in the world and so forth. So that reprioritization is causing some tension in our organizations right now, because there's different priorities essentially at the sort of management level or the higher level versus what's happening sort of at the mid or lower levels in the company. So your question was, what's the big change that's going on? It's this generational shift. And what I believe is that over the next 5 to 10 years, the companies that authentically engage in this and authentically try to create a truly, inclusive culture that lets people, bring their whole selves to work, and, those companies are just going to separate in meaningful ways from their competitors who are just kind of paying lip service to this thing. So 10 years from now, we may see, Coke and Pepsi have all the same marketing materials, all the same, codes of conduct and internal things and so forth, but one is going to separate from the other because, and the one that separates is going to be the one that authentically can create an environment that allows these folks to thrive with this different hierarchy of needs and priorities.
Do you think, if you take the case, for example, of remote work now, that's quite popular, can we compare, how generations are reacting on remote work, on demands, because we see very different approaches of the companies, one for the PR, one from the real insiders, actually, what's going on here.
Great point. It's a great sort of case study for what I'm talking about. Before I answer that, let's kind of talk about what an employee or what a brand is, right? A brand typically has been an external facing thing. It is the marketing, it's the commercials, it's all the PR stuff, to your point. Well, there's an inner surface of that brand, and that's the employee experience. And now as the wall between these two different things has collapsed into sort of, a single dimensional plane, we recognize that it's actually the same thing. And so now everybody has Twitter in their pocket, and people will go online and share an internal correspondence that doesn't resonate with that external brand. So the authenticity between the external brand, what potential clients see, and that which people inside the organization experience every day, that needs to be cohesive. So in a work from home environment, I think what we're seeing is that it's flattened the world, so to speak, right? Labor mobility look, before work from home, labor mobility was higher than it had ever been. Now it sort of has risen exponentially because you can get a job in Colorado and never leave the Northeast, or you can work in a country across the world, you can work in a company across the world and never meet the people that you're working with every day face to face, because we're now in this new normal where, we're doing meetings over Zoom and so forth. So that just adds an accelerant, to your point, to this role that this relatively more mobile, relatively sort of less dollar myopic population is going, how that is going to play out. Look, people are going to vote with their feet. And, hey, this company seems really great from the HR person I spoke to and the onboarding package, but when I get in, it felt like every other soulless company I've worked at before, and I can't sleep well at night, or I don't feel fulfilled because the purpose of the organization is not resonating with my own purpose. Well, I'm going to go ahead and find another job, and I may never meet those people face to face, but I'm going to plug in somewhere where I can really resonate with the purpose and the mission of the organization. And we're starting to see that all over the place. So this is just, again, it's just another opportunity to collapse that wall for organizations between the employee experience and the external brand. And that can only happen when we recognize that we're really just talking about one thing. That culture is what inflates the broad company and allows for that external surface to be viewed by the marketplace. And if those things are cohesive, then that company can continue on as a going concern. And if there's dissonance between, the image I'm putting out in the market and what people inside are recognizing, well, that inauthenticity is going to rise to the surface way more quickly, today than it did 10 years ago, for example.
You got me on branding, actually. So that's my background. I was working with Leslie DeShanatoni, actually, on branding quite a few companies. He's the guy who brought Mini, actually. He get a Bianco check, to build up the Mini. And he said, like, let's say before we start building Mini or even cars and think of cars, let's do a formula, which kind of people we want in the company. So before even building the factory or something else. And that's why Mini was a success story, because he did a formula for the branding from the inside, actually, from the early stage, even before Gen Z, let's say.
It's genius. It's absolutely genius. Like, build your team for the type of people, the type of players you want on that team. You know what I'm saying? If you can do that, then the odds of the internal brand, or call that the employee experience, and the external brand, the marketing, being actually cohesive is going to be just exponentially higher. It's a great case study. That's super interesting. And as you said that, I was like, well, that makes sense why that brand has been so successful, because it's one thing. It's homogenous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. At the end, actually, the external how to say, visual elements. Just the let's say part of the play that was coming from the inside, from the culture, from the inside.
Right.
And of course, resonating usually a marketing agency or somebody building on top of it. Not just marketing agency building first. We are the bank of the kind people, and then you don't get kind service in the office. Let's say.
Well, yeah, great point. And I think when we can recognize that your brand, whether you're a company or a person, is really just your reputation. Again, it's historically been this external facing thing, but if you recognize that it's your reputation, well, what kind of reputation does your company have with its employees? Is it one of, cognitive dissonance because there's this massive gap between the aspirational culture that's on our mission and values page and that which people experience and live out every day? Or is it one that's kind of collapsing and that there's, we feel like there's an authentic effort to maintain a high reputation internally? That's just going to translate more cohesively to that external brand, and that's going to really be kind of supercharged gasoline in that organizational vehicle.
Great. So usually it used to be in our childhood, actually there was not so much choice of ice cream. When you go today to the ice cream, there's much more beyond plain vanilla. Let's say
right.
There's so many combinations. Last time I took the strawberry and peppers, in the ice cream shop. So it's question, are you ready to try? It's something differentiating, But I'm catching also here to catch up on the second animal, let's say on the fast forward on the markets and bringing the value innovation in this, let's say, blue lagoon. Where do you see this blue lagoon on your market niche, for example, for your future?
Yeah, I love that question. So it kind of dovetails. You're probably going to see a common thread throughout this conversation because I always believe, and my brother always believed, that the only sustainable competitive advantage in business is culture. A culture is simply, though, just the sum total of actual behaviors, actual values, actual activities, amalgamated across all the individuals that choose to show up every day at the same place to pursue that organization's mission. So what we have done in our company is we have placed a tremendous amount of focus, a tremendous amount of effort and resources on building an authentic culture that allows people to bring their unique gifts to work. Listen, there is this silent killer across most all businesses, and it is an employee engagement killer. We are used to employees, on average, pushing that gas pedal down only about 70%. That's kind of the national average in our country. So there's a bunch of headroom and there's a bunch of opportunity to get more of that discretionary effort over and above that, that minimum below which somebody gets fired. But you're only going to get that discretionary effort if somebody wants to give it. And people are not going to be coerced into it. It's not about walking around with a riding crop and a bullhorn yelling at people to row faster. It's about having a destination that we all want to pursue and everyone's rowing as hard as they can because they're driven by their own purpose to get there. So with that kind of a framework and philosophy, we approached this business and we built the business upon that. So for us, really our big, blue ocean strategy is one of authentic culture, because that translates into a way more meaningful employee experience, a way more meaningful than client experience. And that allows for a lot of that goodness that shows up on our P&L and shows up in our metrics and trends over time. So, our whole kind of brand promise in our marketplace is that CompianceLine cares. There's been a lot of sort of external money that's come into our marketplace of people who don't really care. They're in the private equity firm is in the business of making money. All good. I'm not throwing stones. I'm just calling, I'm calling a ball and a strike. You know what I'm saying? I'm the umpire here.
Yeah.
So all good, but many times that's in conflict with what's in the best interest for the client. So if we can keep the client as at the top of our org structure, keep our org structure flipped upside down so that we're actually a company of servants. I'm the chief servant, my brother's the chief servant. We're all serving up with the client on top. That's a mentality that is not, you can't impose that mentality onto another organization, on an organization that has to bubble up from the ground, that has to sprout up from the soil. So that's just a very difficult thing to recreate. Like if I invented an iPhone, you could go and invent an iPhone, a Samsung or, another smartphone, but the delivery of that to the marketplace is done by people. And if we as, leaders in our organization can just even marginally increase the level of discretionary effort that people are providing naturally versus sort of trying to pull it out of them and managing them by fear, there's just so much magic and so much benefit from the diversity inherent to all of our organizations that, you know, the company and then, you know, correspondingly, the clients are going to gain the benefit of.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, how also, especially in IT, when we talk to competition, and see how they try to play kind to the Generation Z in a way. I mean, you're talking about the Blue Lagoon and niche, and it's interesting how, when I was talking also with our HR, you know, how companies, especially in IT, they start offering pools, you know, playrooms, hairdressers,
kombucha bars. Yeah, exactly.
You know, whatever is trendy to get, especially in Silicon Valley, you know, to attract people, you know, to stay there, not to change job, you know, and even when you talk about Europe, going up and up on the levels, let's say what you can. I know even the company transforming 5-star hotels to the offices just to give 5-star experience.
Right.
It's question also, how do you communicate that outside and inside? If you're just promoting, hey, there's a picture of our pool, would you join us? You know, you will. One man said, you will just get the swimmers. You know, you will not get people who want to really dig in.
Great
you
point.
know, get the hard work. You know, you'll just get, you know, people who like to swim. You know, maybe they will know something from IT, but if you show people, you know, exactly what are the values that you're building up, that you can. Actually use the shovel, you know, and dig hard in these things, but you can even use the pool and the rest, you know, but you know,
right.
to build on the something more than just being the next ninja in the company, you know, but appreciating you as a person. You know?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that have gone on here, and let's just use Google as like the archetype of this thing, because I think they were really, you know, they probably didn't invent this, but they were at least the ones who made it the most popular maybe 10 years ago, to your point of having, you know, 4-star chefs and all the food you wanted, and you can take a nap and you can get your dry cleaning done and all these sort of perks. Well, I think a lot of people have tried to emulate that, and they've tried to, again, just put the facade around the business and saying, hey, here's a pool table in the break room and here's a bunch of free granola bars. Well, if that is a, you know, if that is an output of a culture, then I think it's a lot stronger than it trying to be an input on the culture. So if the natural outcropping of your culture is, hey, we work hard and we play hard, and we're going to have a sort of a work-life harmony, not work-life balance, and we're going to have these things, you know, in the office, but hey, we're still a really high-performing culture, like it has that yin and yang, then there's room for it. But I've just seen a lot of organizations just try to be like, oh, I guess the thing is to have a kombucha bar and have an espresso machine in the office, and then they think that all of that goodness that comes from a really strong culture is just naturally going to sprout up. And I don't think you can fix your house by painting the bricks of the house. Okay. You know what I'm saying? You have to fix the actual house, right? Yeah. So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. But you were talking about, hey, showing this picture of the pool, and then you're just going to get the swimmers. I think you have to underscore the hard and the soft. Like you have to yin and yang it. And you're not trying to just sell, you know, I'm not just trying to sell you something, you know, a job, and you're going to go away. No, you're going to be part of this family. So you need to have a very clear picture of like what you're actually stepping into. And so that's, again, talking about both of those pieces of the puzzle. And, you know, if the name of the game is psychological safety and making people feel at home at work, that, you know, that allows an organization to basically draw lines of safety around the business for people to exist in and not be scared all the time of, hey, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to do the wrong thing? Right. But also, if I think you're doing it right, that psychological safety and that long-term view, if people actually buy into it, allows for a lot more candor and a lot more, you know, if you're on the football field, for example, right, you know where those lines are. Everyone's got the same jerseys, so you know that you're on the team. Well, if a guy misses a block or you know, doesn't cover the guy that he's supposed to, it's not a big issue where you have to go through, you know, an assistant coach and get the assistant coach to bring somebody else in as a witness. You know, I'm trying to kind of like paint a picture of like the typical HR feedback loop to tell that guy, no, you grab him by the helmet and you say, hey, can you please block that guy? And you hit the ground and you keep running forward. So if you can incorporate some of that candor into the business, that, again, it's not a license to like be a jerk to folks. But hey, I'm going to tell you if something's messed up because we're trying to move fast here. And I'm taking the long-term view. So you don't have to drive home every night with a knot in your stomach thinking that you're going to, get fired. But I'm going to talk straight across the table in terms of expectations, what's working, what's not working. And that needs to be able to go both ways. So I think on that onboarding piece, or, with respect to attracting the right talent, the more you can articulate those hard pieces in conjunction with those sort of softer pieces or those nicer kind of attraction, benefit pieces, whatever, the higher the odds are that you find somebody that's really looking for that. Because listen, there's a lot of people at a lot of organizations that wish they were in a high performance culture. Well, okay, talk about that. You're going to start to attract the people that you want if you can clearly articulate what you're bringing to the table for folks. So that's that kind of employer branding piece that shows itself on the hiring front. You know what I mean? And I always see companies kind of lean into all the good stuff and all the benefits. It's like, I'm trying to sell you a bill of goods. Every company has problems. Every company has frustrations. And when I'm bringing somebody on board, or I'm looking to bring somebody new on, I am pushing them big time. You need to talk to other people in the company. You need to ask them the tough questions, because I'm not trying to give you a snow job. This needs to be a two-way interview, because if somebody's joining our ship for this journey, I want them to stick on the ship for the whole journey. You know what I'm saying? And that can only happen when they have a relatively more clear picture of what they're getting involved with.
Amazing. Yeah, so it's really interesting now to hear also what's your company doing? How do you run FastForward with your company growing so fast and actually achieving all this? Can you tell us a little bit more about the company, about your, let's say, goals in achieving all this, what we were talking on the market and globally?
Yeah, thank you. So our company, CompianceLine, has a suite of corporate integrity products. Those range from, so these are all products and services that allow leaders who care to reinforce their culture, crowdsource risk management, and ultimately improve their bottom line and presence in the marketplace. And the solutions fall into a few different categories. We have, compliance training that's super interactive, that has all the most recent, behavioral psychology embedded in it so that people actually watch it and actually learn the information. We have whistleblower solutions, which are software intake channels for people to speak up and raise issues within their organization, ranging from discrimination or conflicts of interest or any of the things that happen in an organization to help again extinguish risk. And then finally, screening and monitoring, ranging from full employee life cycle, from background checks to ongoing screening and monitoring, license checks and things like that. So we're at a really interesting, I love the business that we're in. As you can tell, like, I'm a big culture guy, and it's great that we're able to help larger organizations reinforce their cultures and give a voice to the people that are crying out in their companies. So right now, we serve about 7 million employees around the world across our client base, which is super exciting. And we have a goal for that to be 100 million in the next 10 years. So we're growing quickly, but the big thing for us is to make sure that that the experience that the 50 millionth person gets is the same as what folks that are in the 7 million that we have right now are experiencing with us. So that means a constant re-articulation and a constant conveyance to our team of what our purpose is and what we're trying to do and what we're doing this quarter to meet our brand promise and meet our internal values, and give people a voice within our own company. Nobody would ever continue at on an exercise class or a spinning class if the person up there is 450 pounds. You're like, this guy is not going to teach me to get in shape. Somebody needs to be in, the person teaching the exercise class needs to be in shape. That's the point. So we need to make sure that our house is in order so that the experience, the advice, the interaction we have with our clients, which we want to maintain for 10, 20 years, is going to be consistent and be of value. I think focusing on the pain points of our clients, listening to the feedback, and again, taking that long-term approach is what's going to really allow us to get there. Now, I feel like you had a question that I didn't answer in that rambling there. So did I miss anything?
It's good. No, it didn't.
Okay.
It's you have a new webpage, so I mean, in the meantime, since we were talking last time, it looks awesome. Let's say.
Oh, thank you.
Much more explanatory, let's say, to understand, and already, 7 million people on the list is quite impressive, let's say.
Thank you.
Yeah, And when you think of the projects that you're doing, what you're most proud of working on in your company?
So we have a new software rollout that's coming that I'm pretty proud of. This is our new case management software. This is going to help us surpass a lot of our competitors. We've had a ton of feedback from clients about what's working with other folks, what's not, what they need kind of built in. Because at the end of the day, if we're not alleviating pain points, to what I was saying before, if we're not adding real value, well, then why is someone going to stay with us? So, our whole philosophy is I want to earn our clients' business every single day. I'm not trying to handcuff them to the radiator with some weird contract that's going to take, 5 years to litigate because I haven't done my part to keep their business. So in order to do that, we really have to incorporate all that feedback that we're getting, take action on it, and be responsive to the marketplace so that the solutions continue to provide efficiency and effective sort of risk mitigation. So that's a big one. And I'm really also, I'm really pretty proud of our sales development team. That's a team that I'm over, and we have made a lot of changes in terms of our approach to the marketplace. I think when we started, we kind of took some kind of off the shelf, advice, and recently kind of a light bulb went on and said and we kind of realized that our outreach needs to be, to my point from before, our outreach needs to be consistent with our values and our approach to the solutions that we provide. We don't take square pegs and jam them into round holes. We want to configure a solution for the unique situation that somebody may be in. Well, our outreach needs to do that as well. So watching this team get up their J curve over the last couple of months and embrace this new sort of personalized, value forward approach, not just trying to get an appointment, but really try to understand, hey, is this the right time? Can we actually make your life better through a conversation or just by sharing some techniques? Those are two kind of exhibits of our heart, you know what I'm saying, in two different realms that I'm pretty proud of.
And if you look in the future, for example, what are the two things that you will double down in your company in the future, and maybe why?
Yeah, I think our company has almost doubled in size over the last couple of years. So it seems silly, but we're continually trying to double down on the culture piece because it's very easy. It's very easy for a sauce to get diluted. Add a quarter cup of water to a can of Coca-Cola, and it's going to taste very, very different. You know what I'm saying? So we need to double down on the culture piece, double down on making sure that new folks have a voice, because there's a layer of employees within our organization, due to our rapid growth, that are new. Those we need to make sure that those people are grafted onto the vine, so to speak, and feel comfortable enough and included enough to raise their hand when they see something not working or not right, or they just have a concern. So that's a big one. And then the other thing that we've doubled down on is our software development. So again, kind of a hard and soft. We need to be doubling down on both categories of things. And so we've changed our software development approach over the last 12 months, and it's just allowing us to rip out a lot better software a lot more quickly. New features that clients request can be rolled out, in less than a month. And it's really this sort of agility that we want to maintain as we grow. Again, if it's going to be cohesive and we're talking about one thing, that also needs to be lived out in our software development. And yeah, so those are the two bets that we're really kind of stacking more chips up on.
Okay, thank you. So it's changing with the speed and fast forward. I believe also there's a lot of changes, like you already mentioned, the product that you're developing and how you progress in that. But how do you differentiate? How do you see your product is differentiating? It's really, how to say, a nice blue lagoon that you're developing. Do you see also that you can keep differentiating to the big competitors, or let's say the global players?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And to get into the conversations, we have to kind of talk about the basic things, the basic pain points that folks may be, seeing. But I think once somebody gets deeper into a conversation with us, our blue lagoon, I mean, again, it sounds stupid and it sounds silly, but it's just that we care. So, we want to be a lot more like a Sherpa who can help you climb a mountain you haven't climbed before than we're like a butler who's just standing with a silver tray with your martini on it. That's that's a table. You know what I'm saying? Sherpa is somebody who you're relying on to get to your destination. And, you know, the best Sherpas are willing to pick your bag up for you, give you insights about as the weather changes or if a plan needs to change and so forth. So taking that long-term view, which is something that we can afford to do both philosophically and from our capital structure and things like that, is a massive differentiator once somebody's in the saddle with us, because it just gives us so much flexibility to, like, I don't need to nickel and dime with a client. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to, like I said, handcuff them to a radiator with some bizarre 5-year contract that I'm not fulfilling my end of the bargain on, but hey, the letter of the law is the letter of the law. So that's what ends up keeping folks with us and keeps our I mean, we have a gross churn of less than 3%, which is extremely low for a SaaS company. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
But the point is, that's not features based. Of course, the features need to be kept up, and we, you know, we're always updating those things, but it's the manner in which you know, they can rely on us as they go down their sort of risk mitigation or culture journey is really what ends up keeping folks with us. So again, you can't just, you know, if you have a you know, for a competitor to say, hey, I want everybody to start caring and they're banging a gavel. Well, again, that needs to come, you know, from the inside out if that's going to be authentic and something that someone can actually rely on from a client perspective.
I agree. It's not easy, how to say. But how do you plan, for example, also to develop or redesign your products or services, let's say, with speed? Do you develop everything inside, all the technology, or you try to find the best partners for this, or how you go?
You know, we do a mix depending on what it is. All the brain power is within our company. We may get some bricklayers from time to time to help us, you know, erect the wall, so to speak. But it's really about constantly being in front of the client, constantly interacting. Hey, is this working? What's not working? What would really make your life easier? I mean, that as a question, everyone should be asking their clients. What could I do to make your life easier? What do you wish this thing did? And you're going to get a ton of answers that you can start to document, and you can start to Pareto that list in terms of what's going to give the bang, you know, the biggest sort of effectiveness bang for the unit of effort buck, and start to put things out that actually meet the needs of the client. Like, we don't want to be a company that's trying to sell, you know, I don't want to sell a client on a crappy solution, you know, and be like, well, you know, you don't need to do that. I want to have the best solution possible for them with the most configurabilities to meet their specific needs. So it's not like trying to shoehorn a new tool into an existing process. So I just think it's constant conversations with these people that you're partnered with on the client side.
So it's kind of for the innovation sprints with your clients, you know, all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
This, creative or even design sprints before even building the innovation and then delivery deployment of
you got it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Good. And moving to the last animal, I would like to ask you, the Jacques Hadamard did really old theory more than 120 years ago about butterfly wings, you know, making the hurricane on the flap of the wings. On the one side is making hurricane, hopefully not in Louisiana, and on the other side of the world. And here are a few questions that personally I would like to ask you. What do you see as the biggest challenge you faced in your career? How did you handle it?
Oh man, I think the biggest challenge I've had and probably still have is like the fear of failure. You know, we've made a big bet on this company and it's very public, and you know, I really want it to be a success, not just sort of monetarily, but just for creating opportunities for folks and magnifying our impact. So I think that like imposter syndrome is something that I probably battle with all the time, because I just feel like I'm just, you know, a guy, which I am, you know, irrespective of the role that I'm in. So, you know, how I deal with that, I think, is just trying to learn more and trying to, you know, read books and, you know, listen to podcasts of other people who are further down the path than I am. And I think the more I do that, the more I realize that the feelings that I'm having are pretty normal. Like, everyone feels it, right? Even, you know, even Elvis would have, you know, his heart would probably race before he stepped out on stage. Maybe not toward the end, but at least initially he did, right? So that's a normal feeling. The imposter syndrome is a normal feeling. The fear of failure can be a great fuel, but it also can hit a tipping point where it becomes destructive and can lead to self-sabotage. So trying to stay on the good side of that, you know, fear of failure is always a challenge. And also kind of trying to divorce myself from the outcome. Like, I can't control I can't control the weather, right? But I can control if I put the right seeds in the right soil that I've tilled appropriately. And if things line up, well, I can point to the things that I was able to control, and the things that I can't control, I guess I'm just saying, like, recognizing where that line is between what I can control and what I can't. And so many of the things that end up determining whether something is a success or not are really kind of outputs to a complex system, a multi-factor equation that you don't really have any influence on or any true control over. So I guess trying to keep that in front of mind and keeping my headspace as clear as it can be. I think it's a challenge because there's all these dynamics kind of flying around and all these new challenges popping up and things like that. But trying to maintain that and recognize that, hey, I just need to put one foot in front of the other. Obviously keep the goal in mind, but just focus on one foot in front of the other, planting those good seeds and letting the harvest take care of itself.
That's amazing. Is that maybe part of this pressure coming from your having a line of entrepreneurs in your family? Is that also influence?
Maybe, yeah. It might be. I don't know. I've just, my brother and I, we've just always had really big dreams. We've always wanted to make a big dent on the world. And yeah, I mean, there's probably some like deep identity stuff in it. Like I've always been a top performer. I want to continue to be a top performer. Being a top performer means there's some kind of external output. There's some kind of score on the board that you can point to and something tangible, which again, it gets increasingly difficult when the work you're doing, so to speak, is done through hundreds of people or dozens of teams or whatever. But yeah, there's absolutely probably some like foundational like pressure there that's just kind of built into our DNA or something,
Yeah. But it's still, it's still how to say, American dream in a way, with a background and it's coming from immigration. It's the same actually in HTEC group that we have. Like both founders.
Is that right?
Actually, that moved one to the Midwest, one to Silicon Valley, and actually starting with HTEC was like, hey, they just moved with their family. They just got married and moved away. They didn't have anything to start with, and only their knowledge, their hands, let's say, to start.
Their passion, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's everything. It's on you, and the hunger that you have. It's beyond just basics, but it's driving you. The drive that you get out of this passion, actually, it's keep moving the companies. Now we are just reaching this month 1,000 employees, so it's speeding up.
Amazing.
236 last January. Now it's 1,000, and
wow,
we plan 3,000 next year. So
amazing. So you're living exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, that's
exactly.
amazing.
I'm testing these 5 animals. Looks like a strange story, but it's for last. I wrote a book about 21 years ago, about searching for the venture capital and business angels and all the growth. And then it took me like 10 years to develop a model. Now for the last 10 years, I'm testing before I prepare the next book, and it's going actually on these 5 animals, trying to prove the model that these are the pillars of growth. And more and more I'm searching, and now living also one of the stories, you look what exactly can fit is the model. And kind of the holy grail of my research is the right speed to the right company and team. Can you calculate like the Moore law or something? What is the right speed? Because you can go too fast, you can burn. You can go too slow. You're not using the capacities, or you're too profitable or whatever. It's finding just the right speed. And at the end, it always comes to the people, like you said. Not just first one, but when you have your your ice cream shop, it's everything is about you. But when you open the second one, or you have the factory of ice cream, it's the culture that's built first around you, and then all the pillars that you build with the people joining you and your team.
I love that framework. I mean, again, I always say this, but like the most profound things are so simple, but really dialing that speed into this engine that you're operating, dialing that in right is really the name of the game. I'm sure if you could do it again, you'd know some points on your own path in your own company that you maybe should have slowed down, or you're like, man, in retrospect, I could have pushed on the gas a little bit more and run this engine a little hotter. Yeah, that is a tough one though. It's like, you're balancing a ball on a fingertip or something. Like it's very difficult to keep balanced and keep it kind of moving forward effectively. But I love that concept. I'm sure I'll spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah, because components are more or less the same. When we
right.
And I saw this 20 years ago. The components, people, it's money, it's the elements that you have to do the formula. It's like making gin tonic. You can put too much gin, too much tonic. Okay, you can pick that. But how fast is somebody drinking? That's another question.
Good point. Great analogy. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
So yeah, here's also, I mean, it's amazing case that you have and company. I will really love to share this with people watching Fast Forward podcast. And I'm sure that it will be interesting to hear what's your also, let's call it superpowers. What keeps you going through your toughest days? Is it kids? Is it family? Is it your brother that you're working with? How do you see this? What's pushing you forward?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I'm very fortunate to be partnered with my brother in the operation of this company and the building of this company. Um, he is like, he's my best friend. We come from the same place. We have the same ethos and views on the world. We're very different, but we're very complementary. So just having someone to go through it with me is a big one. And, my other motivation is probably my wife and my kids. I want them to be proud of me. I want to make a good life for them. I want them to look at the work that I've done and say, my parents as well, of course, to look at the work that I've done and be proud of that. So I know that's very ethereal. And that's very high level. I think on a day-to-day basis, it's probably, probably the fear of failure and wanting to, make sure that I'm not a liar. Like us saying that we care, and then a client on the other side, when something goes wrong, yeah, things do go wrong from time to time, even in our business. Making good on those promises. That's I want to be, I want there to be. I don't want there to be dissonance between my words and deeds. You know what I'm saying? And when I say I mean also the whole company's impact on the client and on the marketplace and things like that. So those are probably the three. My brother, my wife and family, and just kind of day to day making sure that we're living up to the big claims we've made. And there's a real sense of urgency here because this generational shift is not going to happen every 5 years. This is like a once in a lifetime, given the size of these generations and the size of these constituent groups and how different they are. It's a really big opportunity, and we have a unique thing to bring to the marketplace. We have a unique heart. My brother and I have a unique background, I think, and it's our company's duty to make the world a better workplace. Like, we are particularly set up to do it. We have the capital structure that allows us for a long-term view, to play that infinite game, to put the client first. All these pieces that I think lead to a great, building a great company, we have them in place. We just need to get out there and push it more and increase that 7 to 50 and then on to 100 million people,
Yeah, amazing. And do you see, it's more personal question, but I really like how do you say, you call it Sherpa and then the chief servant. How does your kids see you? Are you also Sherpa to them?
Chief Yeller. Yeah, I'm kidding. I mean, me and my brother always joke that, like, as a dad, you're like the bottom rung on the totem pole. You're the rung that, all the grass grows up around, that you got to trim it down. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast to be that kind of servant in all areas of your life. Like, I'm definitely not walking in the door and getting, foot massages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to, and balancing and kind of trying to create harmony between my work life and home life are super critical. But I don't know, you'd have to ask them, because your external you can never be too sure about what your external awareness actually is. You know what I mean?
Managing expectations. When is
exactly
the day, when is the day for sweets? I know it.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are they expecting in a way? So, but
right.
Yeah, we build these expectations all their lives. So from the early stage, we build them as much as we can give them. And
right.
In some stage, they're shaped in kindergarten, in school, by their friends, But
right.
I think if you give them the right values, like you're mentioning to company, if you build the right values at the beginning, it's really giving them much easier to build up, to stand for themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we got to equip them to be sort of fully functioning human beings, not selfish animals, that look for what they can do for other people and what difference they can make in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for the end, I mean, if you talk about inspiration, what do you, since you're you mentioned podcasts and you love audiobooks, and what do you suggest? Maybe some tools or some things to read, to listen, to watch, to stay inspired.
Yeah, well, definitely the ethics experts. I'm kidding. That is, but
Of
also
course.
check it out if you like. That's our podcast. But kidding aside, last year I did the 100-book challenge, and there were so many books. Like, I learned more last year than I think I did in the 5 or 10 years before that. And a couple that really jump out to me that were super resonant with, I think, what we're trying to build. One is called This Could Be Our Future. Really great book by a guy named Yancey. I think he started PayPal, and really a phenomenal book. It's kind of a manifesto about this sort of more kind of widening the scope of what a business can be, and it's really kind of a stakeholder versus a shareholder approach to running a business. That's a really great one. And there's another great book called Everybody Matters by a guy named Bob Chapman. I would highly recommend that book. This is a guy who's been able to basically McDonaldize culture and build a massive company through acquisition, and basically push an authentic culture that's not like imposed on the acquisition companies, but one that again helps to release that magic in the workforce. So those are two great, really great books that I'd recommend to anybody that's in business, to just open your mind a little bit to, you know, really the good, the good that you know, a company can do for the world.
Great. So great tips, great insights. So Nick, always pleasure sharing with you, and I hope we have one time more, let's say, a lifetime together to enjoy
Yes,
some
sir.
real fireplace, you know, and find some good bottle of Italian wine, for example. And,
Yes, I would love that.
We could enjoy it.
Yeah,
Good.
man. Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was an absolute blast. Always a pleasure. Love your work. Love the podcast and all you guys are doing to change the world.
Thank you.